Hello, everybody. So here I decided to just start from. Well, let me turn the volume down a little bit. Start from a fresh save again. But what I want to do is talk about the Treetops area, which means I have to kind of navigate over there. But starting from a fresh save at least will let me test the question of like what's the bare minimum you have to do. I think you have to activate the boat, but I'm not exactly sure the first place you go to get the boat. I don't think you can get it from here. I think you have to go to the docks on the beach. So it's been a little while since I did that last video. And I've been doing a lot of arting up of my own game, so some of that thinking may be coming through while I'm taking a look at this. Yeah, so this is like the bare minimum of what you have to do. Let's go out here to get the boat. So this is like, you can get the boat a few different ways, I think. This may be the only actual spot that you can get the boat. Let's go down to the beach here. But obviously, like, one of the main interesting aspects of the Treetops area, or Treehouse area it's sometimes called, is that it's the only area that you can't reach by land. I could run over by the keep and show that the backside's closed, but we'll just say you can trust me on the fact that you have to go into it by boat. Not entirely sure a particular reason why that's an area that you have to go into by boat versus any of the other areas, but it is at least interesting in that there is one area where you have to enter from the water and not from the land. These drawings are actually kind of detailed. The panel resolution's a little bit low here, though. In any case, yeah, I did a video on the color area, I guess, already, so there's not exactly much to say about it other than that green is certainly very prominent when you're looking at it from the water. Still not quite sure what to make of the architecture of the ending area there. I guess I'll have to do a video on end game at some point. Yeah, so my thoughts on like why certain things are themed the way they are for this area are not super solidified. You know, it's clearly like a swamp or a marsh type theme. That's definitely more swampy, but this is kind of a variation on that. These trees, I'm not quite sure what they are. I think that they're, oh, I had just looked it up. Now I can't remember, honestly. They are, yeah, I can't remember. So we're just gonna have to go with that. I don't remember what kinds of trees these are, but in any case, they are a common swamp tree type that do this sort of thing with their roots. So there's a couple of interesting things about this area. You know, one is just that you've got a choice about whether you go in the area, and then there's also kind of just some walkways down here that more or less dead end. This one has a recording. I haven't really been talking about the recordings in these videos. I'm not exactly interested in doing so, and this one has, well, something to see out this way. Again, also not talking really about that stuff that much, just because, well, you know, I've kind of tried to segment off. There's like two aspects of the game primarily. You know, if you played the game, like gameplay wise, there's two main aspects, and one I've mostly talked about, and one I've pretty much just not talked about at all. I think. So I think I have talked a little bit about some of the hidden things in the environment, but so yeah, so these trees like are very like aggressively pruned and stuff. Kind of the treetop theme of the area, like these walkways up into the trees and all that. I'm not exactly sure why that particular theme is chosen for this area, other than it's very distinct from the other themes. It's the same as I think Channel Wood in Mist, so that's kind of possibly part of it. So when you get up here, you approach a panel that has two symbols on it that you maybe seen or you haven't seen, and you do something and it opens. This is again one of those like introductory panels where it's really down to chance, and you have a 50-50 chance, I believe, of being right, and your most likely things are right. So the likelihood that the player will learn anything from this panel, unless they go back to it, is pretty odd, or is pretty low, I should say. I'm trying to look for like anything, you know, in the area that really stands out. Like these odd trees do definitely stand out. I'm not quite sure why they are like pruned back the way they are, but or even the reason that the structures of the area are particularly built the way they are. They're kind of like a modernistic interpretation of a treehouse in a way. So the actual like puzzle symbols, a lot of times people call them suns or stars. They also kind of look to me like lotus flowers. They also look like two squares overlapping each other at like 45-degree rotation, which I think kind of ties in a little bit to the theme of the puzzle. So this one you have a little bit more likelihood of being wrong about, because you have to go around it this way to do that correctly. So as far as like why this raises up versus that one sliding over, this door slid to the side and that one raises up. I think it's just to give it a different feel, right? So that you don't have like the same thing over and over again. And so this tree is also similarly like pruned back, but has kind of like been pruned back and then grown up somewhat. I kind of wonder about the aesthetic choices of the game. Oh, these trees are swaying. That's interesting. I don't know if I ever noticed that the trees are animating here a little bit. It's one of the interesting things about like the choices of the game aesthetically is sometimes I don't know if there's anything that ties into the puzzles themselves, or if it's just purely to give a unique feel among all the other areas, as well as to give like a unique feel within that area. Like you get to this area or this platform and it's got a particular feel to it, so you get a sense as you're going through the area of just different atmospheres and environments, I guess, right? And doesn't necessarily have to be a specific reason why every single thing is the way it is. So one of the big things of this area is these kind of puzzle platforms, like the puzzles turn into a bridge or whatever. So that's another thing that kind of ties into the theme of the area, right? Is having these walkways. So that could be a good reason to have a treetop. But, I mean, if you think about the mechanic, you're connecting two things. 2 points together have to be connected, but they also are kind of just grouped. They're not necessarily connected. So I don't know. It's interesting. It is definitely the case that I guess this would probably be like the first puzzle where you actually do have to think a little bit about what it is that this mechanic means. But it is interesting. We've got a yellow line, and then we're forming like a yellow bridge, and the panels themselves also are yellow. So now I guess this is the first time that we have more than two. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4 panels. So the panel density here is like relatively low, I'd say, until we get to this point. But these are also kind of just like introductory panels, because like I said, it's fairly easy for you to do that and not really get what the mechanic means. This is like just a different way of kind of testing this, making sure that you didn't just get really lucky. And you know that, I guess also that you know that there's different ways that they can be split. I don't know if like every area in the game is kind of designed to be self-contained in terms of teaching its mechanic. Like you wouldn't need to have known anything about any other area to figure this out. I'm not quite sure. I guess the only way you could really make sure the game functioned that way was if you like brought people on to test those specific areas. It looks like as far as like specularity on the panel goes, the colored symbols don't respond to the specularity, which is probably good because it allows you to control their color a bit better. Okay. That's just like a graphical detail. I'm gonna have a hard time actually like pointing specifically at details of these puzzles that are unique. I feel like there's a little bit of banding in the lighting there. Yeah, there is. So this, yeah, so we went from just 2 to 4 to 6. So at this point, you like really need to know what you're doing. And so this is just kind of giving you a few different things to test your skill, I guess. So this one's like a little bit interesting because you can't do it nearly as straightforwardly as that one. And now we're getting into like real test territory. I think you can skip this one. Oh, no, we can't skip this one. Sometimes you can skip the last one in the section in this area. So I think for this, I'm trying to think. Feels like it makes sense to cordon off this like that. Okay, so that's almost right, but I need to do like this so I have. Yeah. So that's like our tutorial set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 puzzles if we count those earlier ones, and that's just the basics, pretty much. So this would be our test puzzle, I guess, in some sense. So we're fixing to open a door. So this door, I assume, I don't know. I assume it's probably gonna like swing in if you're if you're following your pattern of different doors. So here, yeah, you're definitely not gonna be able to do that. Yeah, you have to do like that. Oh no, it slides over. Yeah, okay. It's like mounted all the way over to there, but it slides to the right. Okay, so yeah, so I think partly just the structure of the area is just designed to give you like, okay, this is like something new and interesting and exciting. Every time you like open these doors, you see something different. It's like, oh, okay. So now the area is opening up, and you got all these different options, and that's interesting, right? So you can do these panels here, or we can go out this way, and we don't know what's there, but it looks like it kind of goes up somewhere, and this definitely goes up and around a tree. So they all have different kind of feels to each path. Just visually. Let me double check that the recording is happening. Okay, it is. Different feels visually and colors. So this is like kind of, you know, a magenta or a pink color, right? And we've got this magenta thing here as well. And this is a timer, which will become important later, but you might find it and not really know what to do with that, or if there's anything you can do with it. But it is an interesting thing, and that timer does get used in a couple other areas, I guess. Or at least one. Oh, it's interesting that there's like a board here, or every now and then it's like a little bit different. Like some of these are older. It's possible because like some of them are in the sun, but then this doesn't really look any different. So I guess the idea is like this is an older structure here, this bit here, than some of the other stuff. Not quite sure why that would be the case, but it definitely looks older. It's more haphazard. It's a little bit less of this fancy modern construction. And then there's been kind of boards patched in here, it looks like. But then that board's also kind of splintered off. Let me come down here, and it's kind of newer. So this is like a similar construction there, but this part's definitely newer. So it feels like there's a bit of a, I don't know, there's a bit of a progression as we go through between like building that is pretty much complete, like this building is very complete, to this building is like not really complete, and also the pruning is kind of getting overgrown. And then this building is like, what even is going on with these trees? Looks like they were pruned pretty aggressively, but yeah, they're not like grown out like that, so it's a little uglier even. But the building doesn't look quite done. I don't know, I'm just kind of analyzing that aspect, which, like I said, is something that I haven't typically done, but I'm kind of thinking about that with regards to my own game. And so this is definitely something that's like intended to kind of tease at you that like, oh, there should have been a way to get over there, right? Normally there'd be puzzles, but there's not any, so I can't get over there, I guess. Now, if you look, you might see that there's a board there and be like, okay, maybe that means something, but I think there's pretty much no other way that you can possibly see anything, any way to get over there, but it does definitely imply to you maybe you should get over there, right? So this way is like a little bit out of reach. We can definitely see that there's a puzzle over there, and you know, we might even remember, oh yeah, that's like we've been to the other side of that, and maybe I can lower that bridge, but maybe you might not think that. Now we go over here, and these are like the mix-ins, and they're a little bit, you know, hidden out of the way, but you would need to know a little bit more. Now this one you don't need to know anything. This one's introducing like multiple colors, right? But still, it's like different branches off of the same tree, so to speak, the same idea, right? And I guess the area is kind of structured a little bit like a tree, because you've got like your main line trunk here, kind of, and then I guess it does bifurcate here, right? So it kind of goes off, and you get kind of a branch here, and you get a branch going off that way, and a branch going off this way, right? So that's one aspect of the area that, like, it's set in the treetops, and it's also kind of got this branching structure, but this is kind of like the main trunk of the area, right? I guess. We go through here, and then it kind of splits off into really two things, and then this kind of goes and makes up the third. I'm going to do this, though, because I feel like, I mean, at this point, there really is no requirement that you do any of these things in any particular order, but it's certainly the closest thing. And if somebody was mainlining, they would definitely kind of gravitate towards this. So this is a mix-in, obviously. So it's not the only thing. It's like you would have to know this mechanic. But this is also one of the first mechanics that's introduced in the game besides just drawing a line through a maze. So the likelihood that you would be able to figure it out is pretty high, I would say. But you do have to know this to get through the area, so that's interesting that, like, there is a certain level of mix-in that's required. But, so this is definitely a variation on some of those very early puzzles with the hexagons, right? I think this is, like, almost exactly the same layout as one of those puzzles. If I was doing this, like, if I was editing this, I could, like, picture-in-picture on things. I've thought about that, actually, but so it's not this way, because then we would end up like this, and that's dead ending, so you can't go around this way, because we would block off that. I can't go this way, because we would block off that. If I go this way, then we blocked off even more. So it feels like I have to go this way to do this, yeah. Okay. So it's a bit of an odd thing. Again, here's like another variation on the dots might even be in literally the same spot. Yeah, they are. So the dots are in the same spot, but the stars or the lotus flowers or the suns are in a different spot here, So this is kind of all just making sure you can handle both of these constraints at the same time, I guess. And this one is a little tricky too. Because, like, I feel like I need to do this. Again, we have that same, like, the line is magenta and the panel's magenta and the bridge is also magenta. I don't know any good particular reason other than, I guess I should say I don't know any reason that would be, like, thematic. It's just kind of to give you a different feel, so you're like, okay, like, this feels different, right? Simply because the panels are a different color. Now, the panels themselves, the backdrop of the panel is actually always gray on these. There's actually no color to the backdrop at all. So this one's definitely trying to, like, freak you out a little bit, because you're like, okay, well, how can I can't get that corner and the other corner while also going through there. So I think you have to get this corner first and this corner first, so you can eliminate those two corners. Yeah. I know there's one of these I can get over. So this one is just the same with the same dots with different different stars. So this one's actually, I would say, a little easier. So I think here I can walk over. Yeah. So you're allowed to skip this one. I'm not sure why specifically we're allowed to skip that one, but we are allowed to. It is certainly going to be harder than the other ones. Okay. Yeah, so the hard part here is definitely more from a standpoint of this top corners than it is anything else. So I'm going to say this way. Seems to make sense. Yeah, so a lot of these are just kind of winding. As far as like, what's the challenge? It's like, which way do you go around the shapes? Okay, so this way we're kind of heading up. We got that magenta path. We get a little bit of like, I guess, a vista. Look out over the island and be like, oh yeah, okay, we've made some progress. So some of this is just really just that, but you know, almost all these buildings have like a little bit of a different structure. Okay, so now we're mixing in white and black dots, so this is also like part of the main line, but requires a mix in. So that's interesting also. So white and black dots need to be separated, so the obvious thing is that, but that's not going to work because the other ones need to be together, right? But you can group the black dots with the stars. I guess that's kind of our point here, right? So here, again, our obvious thing would be to do this, but we can't do that because the white and black. And then our other obvious thing is that, but we couldn't do that because it blocks the exit off, so we have to do like some weirdness where we do like... like this. Oh, that's not gonna work. Gotta go around the black like that. Yeah, so a little bit just tricky in terms of the structure of everything. So that one's actually a little easier. So now this is like just messing with us in terms of the color of the shapes. The shapes look visually a little similar, but we swapped the colors around, so now the dots are orange instead of the other things. So you might, like, if you weren't thinking, be like, oh, okay, well, this would be like pretty easy. I could just do like, it may be the case that it's actually not easy, but, and that it's like impossible unless you think about it the other way. So it looks like it is. So if you were trying to do that, you would end up being like, yeah, you know, the puzzle would be impossible were the colors and the shapes the same. So this one's definitely just trying to get you out of the mode where you're thinking about color corresponding to shape, right? And understanding like, look, those could be any color as well. And then also realizing, okay, can white mix with black as far as those go, right? And I believe the answer is yes, but let's see. How do we do this? So we can do this, yeah. So that's meant to like just bend your brain in that way where you have to stop thinking about separating white and black, right? Because that's like what you've been doing this whole time. Is like, yeah, you got to separate white and black. Separate white and black. And it's so kind of baked into your mind, not even just from this sequence, but from having done those puzzles earlier, that like white and black are dot colors. And I don't think you really see orange dots much of anywhere else. So now we got orange and purple dots. And purple is just an odd color in general, but we're just kind of throwing a bunch of colors at you and being like, I guess reminding you that the color doesn't mean anything other than what it normally means. Other than it's some categorization of the mechanic itself. So in this case, this would be the right thing to do. So here purple's actually a little bit hard to see. This looks very similar to the elevator puzzle in the colors area. I don't know that it is the same puzzle. Again, if I had a little picture-in-picture, I could go boop, and I could do that. Maybe I will actually take the time to edit this, but I probably won't. So in this case, like, you know, your mind's saying, hey, you would have to separate them like this or something, but that's not actually going to work because then you're going to group those purples together. in the middle. So you actually need to do, I guess, like this, because we can group those together with whatever, and we can also group that with whatever. Okay, so then this is exactly the same, except we're blocked on our path. But the question I have is, can't I literally just do the same thing that I just did? Oh no, this one's a little trickier because I went through that way. So I'm guessing, because this one doesn't have anything blocked off, that you could solve this one and this one the same way, but this must just be a very unintuitive solve. So in this case I could do that, and that would group that. But then I would end up with orange and green together, which I don't want to do. So if I do this and group that, that would also end up with orange and green together. So this would work because I can do that. Okay. Yeah, so it's just a little tricky, but you could theoretically do this exact same solution on this one because they're the same panel, but it's just unlikely that you would do that same thing because it is a little bit weird. And you're grouping, I guess the thing that you're likely to do here, which is what I did, if I recall correctly, is group, hold on, yeah, well, there's a few different ways, but you could group can group like that, or you can group. I'm trying to think of like what would be a more straightforward way to do this. I guess like this would be pretty straightforward, wouldn't it? In any case, the other one has, I presume, a unique solution. Okay, so now we start going into a little bit of a surprise section. So this one is definitely doable under normal understanding. This is again like introducing the orange thing again and being like, okay, remember that like if it's orange, you can group it with those colors. And then this one's like, okay, well, can't I just do that? And it's like, no, clearly you can't. And it's like, well, why is that? Oh, okay. Or I should say, why can't I just do that? It's like, well, these aren't happy, so that's just teaching you that these care about what they get grouped with, right? So they care about whether it's white or black. And then here immediately is like, okay, well, there's not enough of these, so you have to make that leap that maybe I can group that with one of those, and that would work. And then this is actually one I think is pretty contentious with a lot of people because it's easier than the previous one, but it's actually mostly a decision that I agree with because this one's a way to like reinforce that thing that you just learned. It's like that's the essential thing of it. But the game's not always about telling you what to do, right? So in this situation, it's telling you, but in a very subtle way, and requiring you to make that leap that like, oh, I bet I could do this. Whereas in this situation, there's literally nothing that, I mean, it's like, what, you know? I mean, you could get very lucky on that other one, but probably not. Okay, so then here we just start messing around with the colors again, and we're trying to remind you, like, hey, you have to, like, separate out the different colors, right? So this one's a little tricky in that regard, but not crazy. Again, we're playing with colors, and adding back in two of these. I'm guessing Yeah, at that point we want to group the stars together. So it's probably also trying to play off of that you've now presumably gotten used to grouping the stars with the dots rather than with each other. And so when you would do this, you would probably end up doing this, and then it's like, well, that one's not happy, and then you're like, oh yeah, okay. And then you might do that, and then be like, oh no, okay, yeah. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You also have been kind of implicitly grouping same colors and separating them, right? So we've only had black with black, and I guess here we had black with white. It was like introduced with that concept of like, because you could do, you might, probably not. Yeah, no, there's literally no way to do that way. So this one's just a purely group the blacks with the whites. Like, they don't like being with. It's like an inverse of the normal thing. Like, they want to be with an opposite there is kind of what's going on. So they sort of work in against each other in that way. That's kind of nice. Okay, so this one's tricky because if the easy way to group that is something like this, but then that cuts through that green, so that means you have to go like do a weird thing where you separate off that. Can we walk over here? No, not yet. And this one can be solved multiple ways. I don't know if there were any others here that could be done in that way. No, so this is the first one that can be solved multiple ways because there's multiple exits. Now the player might not notice that, even though it does ping them every time you do a panel, which is useful so that you can tell that there's multiple exits. So easy way to do this one is like this. And that'll let you get over here. And I think there's several more here that are more or less completely optional puzzles. Like, they're not required to finish the area at all. It's only required if you want to go over there. So it's like a very natural way of having like a optional set of puzzles that like you don't have to do these. But you do still get something for doing them, which is you get access over there. There's clearly a panel over there of some kind, and you know, who knows what else would be over there. You can't really tell from this point, actually, whether there's something that you could get there. You also might not even, you might be looking at this and being like, oh, I bet I have to do these to get to the laser, right? So you're actually not even, as a player, going to be aware of whether or not those are optional. So you're kind of going to see them as, all right, well, I got to this, but, you know, what good did that do me? You know, you may remember, not just you, but, you know, a new player might remember that there was this thing over here, and then they might start doing the this whole number, right, where they try to do the run, try to run it out, and learn the hard way that we can't really do that. So I'm not actually going to do that. I'm going to go back over here. I kind of am wondering, I don't actually think, strictly speaking, any of this is necessary at all, but I may be wrong. I may very well be wrong. Actually, I'm going to go back and we're going to make sure that I'm not wrong. Because I think you do have to do the multiple color spinies together, or spinies, that's how I call them sometimes. Spinies. These are spinies as well. Because at this point, none of these puzzles have had multiple color stars together on the same panel. They've had multiple color stars, but they've been on different panels. So like this one's got a magenta one, and that one's got black ones, and that one's got white ones, and that one's got orange ones. So definitely played with color, but not mixed the colors together. So in this case, this one's also tricky because your inclination is to like combine that, but that's not going to work. So we have to like pull that off by itself, and that's it. Ah, so here we do have multiple colors together. So actually, technically, unless you're clever, this would be where you would be like, oh, I've got tier now. And to complete, we have to combine everything. We have to combine the colored dots and the colored stars together. So the player may not know what this means at this point and be stumped and then have to go do the other ones. So, so I guess that means you do have to do the colored ones, because if I'm gonna get this bridge to go over there, then I would have to do that, right? So let's do this anyway, because I know what the mechanic is. Well, no, let's go do the other way. It's always better to kind of examine it from the standpoint of a player that doesn't know what the heck is going on, and then they're like, okay, well, maybe I need to explore somewhere else, right? So that's nice, too, to have stuff actually on the main path that forces you to learn something different, rather than just... Because I'm thinking, like, I have a pretty heavy analog to this area in my own game. And I don't really force you to... I force you to do all the different subsets of the mechanic, but it's purely based on that there's the wire running to that you need to get. And it's actually kind of nice to try different ways of forcing you to do that. And one is that, purely just knowledge gate you, where you have to combine everything that you have learned together to finish the area. Now, I don't really have... There's no real equivalent in my game of, like, the white, black and white dots exactly. I mean, there is a little bit, but not enough for it to be something that you could kind of reuse everywhere. So I don't really have anything like where you're combining... Like, the combining a mechanic from another area with this area would require you to have some depth of knowledge of that other mechanic. Anyway, so this one, I think anything will work here. You can do that, and you can do that. So whatever you do, that will work. So you may or may not learn anything from that. This one specifically is, I guess, designed to get you to realize that that doesn't work. You cannot, in fact, group two and two, but you're very likely to split them into twos, and so this one is designed to force you to not split them into twos and to understand, okay, well, they only have to be in twos as a group, right? So two at most of any given color. Yeah, it definitely looks like the way the panels are designed. It's not that the lines themselves are, like, illuminated, or the symbols are illuminated, because they're definitely affected by shadow. Well, in this case, they may actually not be. Yeah, it looks like here they're actually not. In some of the other spots, they definitely were. Oh, very, very slightly affected by shadow. But in any case, they're designed to mostly have that color be pure, so that you can always see the color, regardless of shadow, which is what I do in my own game for colors. So again, we've got something that, well, we can't do it that way. So there's no easy way out on that one, but we could do this, which is pretty easy. And here we've got this. So that's, I feel like this is partly just because there's a lot of things that are really subtle that this game does really well with the puzzles that I don't know if I do very well in my own game, but in any case, it's still a work in progress on that regard. But this is like a really subtle thing where it's just, you might have gotten into a mode where you're thinking about, oh, I always need to have these grouped with the other color, right? Because you've just been doing that. You've always been like, except for the first one, you've been like, okay, group 2 magenta with 2 orange, 2 magenta with 2 orange, 2 magenta with 2 orange. And so then when it's like, okay, there's only 2 orange, and there's 4 magenta, it's just meant to, like, break that little pattern that's been going on. So this one is like 2 there, and then what else? What else? Yeah, so this one's just purely, I think that the pattern has to be a little bit weird to solve it. But yeah, like these colors are not affected by that specularity, and the shadows barely affect them either. I don't recall that it's always been like that since ship, but I believe that it probably has because it helps readability to do that. So here we've got this, and we got this, and then we got that. So this is all just kind of like seeing the pattern in the noise, so to speak, right? Seeing how can we see these different things. Okay, so this one's a little tricky because it's not quite going to work that way. So I feel like the things that I'm going to gravitate towards is that type of thing, but then I end up stuck with too many of these. So if I do like this, okay, so then I'm still stuck there. Just cordon off 2 of those. Okay, so that doesn't work either. There's a lot of very trickiness going on with this one, for sure. I can do that both ways. I can go like this or like the other way. But here I can't really do this because then I end up just something odd going on. If I go straight through, then I end up with too many orange on either side. I think that's right. So that one ended up being a little bit simpler than I thought. Okay, so this one's just got an extra color, I think, because we've just been doing orange and purple, or magenta. Now we've got orange and magenta and green, which you might think is not very colorblind friendly, but actually it's fairly colorblind friendly because orange and magenta, most people should be able to see some difference between those two in terms of their tonality, and certainly the brightness on green, people would be able to tell that it was brighter. So here, the trickiness, as far as I can tell, is that the easy thing would be to group everything together, but it doesn't look like we can actually do that because of these. So rather than giving, and this is another thing that the Witness does rather well, is rather than like putting that puzzle in there, there's like an implicit puzzle in your mind from the fact that this puzzle is here, and so you don't have to put the puzzle where you would be able to group them all together. You understand that based on this, because it would be easy to be able to group them all together, there's like an implicit thing in your mind, and so you can just do that. So there is no group them all together puzzle there, because I mean, it would be easy, and it would be more like complete, so to speak, to have that in there. But so this is a nice little bit about this area too, right? Is I'll just keep doing it. But if you if you just kind of mindlessly go straight through here, you will end up at a dead end. And that's kind of really part of the theme of the area, I think. But so here I can't do that, but I can do that. So here I need to do, what do I need to do here? I can't do this, so I have to do like this. Like, this is weird because your mind groups them into these, like, it's like Gestalt principle or whatever, that you like group this way and that way and that way. So you kind of think like, well, this would make sense because that splits it into even numbers, but it doesn't actually work. So here's tricky because I can't do this and then split that off, can I? Oh yeah, I can. Okay. So that doesn't work either, but I can do that. So yeah, so if you're just going straight through, then you're like, oh great, well that didn't do me any good. Now I'm just at a dead end. So the area kind of forces you to reinvestigate in some way something that you might have missed. Now you might end up thinking, oh, I guess I need to probably do these puzzles. But you also might go back and actually notice on the puzzles that you missed these little bits where you could go a different way. And then you're like, oh, okay, I guess I can solve this differently. Interesting. And you can end up over here with your door. So I believe this one can be done like several different ways. It's never been quite clear to me why this puzzle is particularly shaped the way that it is. Okay, so definitely like grouping, if everything's grouped together, that is a solution, and if everything is not grouped together, or I should say, that opens the bridge and everything is not grouped together, then it doesn't. So we've got orange and we've got magenta. Those are two colors there. Of course, there's two ways to get in here. You can do it the other way by sending this one out that way and then over. But this is like, I guess, the most straightforward way. So that gets us access back over here, which, as I was saying, you might have seen from the other way, but maybe not. So I believe, let's go back to our other branch over here. This is a relatively well-designed area, I think. It's just making me think of, like, there's some stuff in my own game that I need to, like, do some design work on, and I might do that today after I'm done with this. So this is, like I said, combining those two things. So if you, like, know what you're doing here, then you would know, okay, if I do this, then that will work, because that's the most important thing here, is to separate those. And here, I guess we're just getting tricky. So there's definitely an aspect where we feel like this needs to happen based on the shapes, right? So that kind of solves itself, I feel like. But this one, I think, I'm guessing probably if you do this, this is not going to work. Yeah, because we end up with black. So we actually need to do something probably pretty different. Not sure what, though. So we can't do black with black, so we have to get, like, white separated from the black. So that would be like this, wouldn't it? But then we can't do that because then we end up with too much out there. Interesting. So we can really do like 2 of these together and 2 of those together, but the black has got to be separated out. And we can actually have multiple whites together, so that's okay. So we do like that. Okay, so we're just kind of variating on a theme here of these boop, boop, boop. So we kind of like gone off, like, if I was kind of going to think about this sequence, this here is purely like, do you understand what these other colors mean? But you could probably solve it actually by guessing anyway. And it's just interesting because it indicates that pure thing of, like I said, that these want to be with opposites and these don't. So now this one's just a little trickier because now there's an extra white one out there. And there's not enough blacks out here, so you just do that. So that's actually pretty straightforward. And this one we kind of throw you off because finally the star symbols end up being the white ones, not the others. So you can't do that, and you can't do really this, but you could. I should say you can't really do, like, can't do this, and you can't group them with the white because it's just too many. But you could do this. Hold on. Do this. You could also group one with the white and one with itself. No, that wouldn't work because there'd need to be 2 whites. So you can do like this, I think. Yes. Okay, so then we finish our little thing. Find our little triangle panel, which we may or may not know what that means yet. And there's a nice little visual secret there. And maybe you go up here and you're like, yes, I'm going to be able to hit the thing. Wait, what's the point of this? I think that's like primarily the reason for this, for you to be able to go up here. It's to give you a reward, I guess. So you get a reward also of seeing that, right? And you get a reward of, it feels like, ah, yes, I'm going to be able to activate this, or I'm going to be able to go in here, or I'm going to be able to be done with the area, but you're not done with the area. And so it's an interesting feeling in a way, right? Now, some players might find that annoying. It also gives you sort of the opportunity to like look back on what you've done. It also gives you a good vantage point to over here, which sort of implies the relatedness of those things. Okay, so let's keep going. There's quite a few puzzles in this area. I haven't kept count of them. I don't usually do that. So this one, I believe, is like much trickier to do sideways, but I may be wrong. So you can go that way. I think there's a tape over there, but that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to ignore that way. So if I do that, that gets that together with that, and then that's together with that. So the only problem I'm ending up with is that I've got too many magenta. Too many magenta. So maybe I need to do like that. And then like that. Nope, I'm ending up with too many magentas. So let's go like this. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so that will rotate that off. Okay, so then we're like kind of somewhere. It's like, okay, that's something, I guess. But yeah, you do have to have both that and the other one. So the only thing that's like purely optional is the integration of this mechanic with the polyominoes from the swamp. Don't have to do that at all, but you do have to do all the other stuff. So here's this bit that I have to do. So I think this one goes like this. Like I said, you can go that way, but it just gets you an alternate access to that. Okay, so here, I gotta do this the other way, which is basically just that. It's interesting that that one has to move out of the way when you do that. So in any case, so then that ends up giving us our shortcut so we can go get the laser. So we'll go get the laser, and then I guess I'll do the optional puzzles. Because those are fun too. And we just did the swamp in the last video, I think. Well, no. I think I did the Zen Temple in the last video. Anyway. So I think purely this one is just one of... Well, like if we just did this, right, then that wouldn't work. So there's a little bit of that going on, of like messing with you, and that you need to move those around. So you do need to have a little bit of a better understanding of these to do them. So in this case, now I could do like, so I can't put a 3 here and then the other, but I can do this and the other, I think. But then I wouldn't be able to end it, so. Other possibility is I could put a 3 here, but that doesn't work. If I put the 3 like straight on like that, in the middle. So I think I need to do like this so that I can go around. So it's just a winding issue. Okay, so now we're on to rotational ones. So if I'm gonna like do a rotation here, I think this would make sense to be the first one where I'd have to combine them together all as well. So here we've got a weird, crazy rotational thing. This again affords us the option to go over there, which would get us down to that yellow platform, or we can go over here, or I guess we can go over here. Then I think that gets us access to something up there, but I'm not sure what. I'm just going to keep going straight. So in this case, this is a little tricky because you would think this, right? But that doesn't work because we end up with the too many things in that shape. So I think we have to do this. So you can't rotate it towards you, it has to be rotated away. Okay, so here we start playing with that color thing is coming back in again. I believe we can actually mix these together. This is like the only place in the game that has that. So we can do like a 3 here. We actually have to mix that and that because there's only 3, so it's sort of implied in the same way that it is the others. So we can do that 3 from the top here, and then we can do a 3 up, and then I can do this over, right? So that almost works, except for the fact that I can't draw it because, I don't know, because of the winding. So so that was tricky because that's like the most obvious thing, right? So take the 3, then take this 3 and stick it on there, and then take the other, but it doesn't quite work. You can't do this either. But we don't necessarily have to have everything lumped together that much, do we? If I took like... Let's see. If I take this and stick it where it is, that doesn't work. So if I just stick it over here, then that works okay. But we end up with like that's bordering on, and that doesn't quite work. So what do we have to do here? So if I go like this, I can have that. I can have the 3 here. But that doesn't quite work, because then we end up with a shape that's like floating in the middle. If we had like this shape, and then we went down with a 3 here, and we went over, then that works, right? Wait, why didn't that work? Oh, I guess I need to do 3 like this. There we go. Okay, so it just ended up being grouped up there. Okay, so then we get subtractive mixed in. There's very, very few subtractive puzzles in the whole game with these subtractive things. It is interesting now that I notice that the colors of the symbols are like pretty much always pure, or very close to pure colors. It's part of why, like, in this light it looks odd, those symbols, because they're really like darker than they would actually be, but they're just kind of designed to ignore light for the most part and just always be the same color. Okay, so these can be whatever. It's just a matter of trying to deal with this other stuff on the side. So I don't know. So what can we do here? If we just stuck those in the middle, then you could have this shape, right? But that doesn't really work. If we stick it on the side, we could have one like this, right? And then we could have one like that. Can we do this? No. Why? We'd have one like this. So this one's a little bit tricky. So we could have one sitting like this, and one sitting like that, overlapping it, but then the bit that it's going to stamp out is an odd shape. Although I've heard some people say that it just works by count in the game. I don't think that's true. If that was the case, then I could actually just do this, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. So it does not actually work by count. It works by shape. It matters the actual organization of these, I believe. Otherwise this would work, right? Because, well, no, that wouldn't work because we'd have to stamp out 4. But if I did this, okay, so maybe it does work by count. Because you would have that there and that there, but then there's 1, and then 1, 2, 3 get stamped away. So yeah, I think it does work by count, which is a little bit sad, but whatever. Let's see. It kind of means that it doesn't so much matter what the shape of it is that it's stamped out. So we got one here, and we've got like a one there. Wait, one there, one there. Is that not right? So that's there. The other one's rotated around. Oh, I could do like this, I guess. So that one's pretty much just like, just group all the things together. I'm not a huge fan of those puzzles. I think they're okay, but they're not like quite hitting me on what they're trying to express. And I think I'm also kind of feeling glum here because I don't quite see how this would work. But I guess it could work some other ways too, right? Hard time seeing what those ways are. In any case, I think we're just going to leave it at that for this area because we've done what we needed to do there. We got the laser. We've got. I believe I did all the puzzles. I didn't solve them in every possible way that you can because there's multiple solutions to some of them that do actually matter in this regard. What else to say about this area? Well, it's a fairly well designed area. I'm not sure. There's probably some obvious thing that I'm missing that would be worth pointing out about the general theme and the general structure of the area, but it all seems pretty kosher. Alright, well, thanks for joining me for taking a look at this, and I'm not sure exactly where we'll look at in the next round, but I think that's, other than the cancellation symbol in the quarry, this would be the last symbol area in the game, right? There's puzzles of that type in the town, but there's no new symbols, I don't think. Alright, anyway, thanks for joining. I will see you in the next one.